So I was watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
Roswell in the 21st century is a detailed re-examination of the Roswell UFO crash case. I have studied the evidence for more than 30 years, and I now put that evidence under a microscope in a cold case examination of the facts. These facts might not please everyone. They are based on my comprehensive investigation that took years to complete, but they do lead to the conclusion that whatever fell was not built on Earth. The best of Project Blue Book is based on the 22-year-long investigation conducted by the Air Force. But the book goes far beyond that, bringing in evidence that was uncovered long after Project Blue Book was ordered terminated. Using facts that were unavailable to the Air Force investigators, I was able to prove that the Air Force manipulated the data and drew unrealistic conclusions about the UFO sightings reported to them. My different perspective shows there was more to Project Blue Book than even the Air Force knew. Both books are available at Amazon.com.
Join Patty Conklin and Healing Within Radio each week. More than entertainment, Healing Within offers educational, useful tools for everyday life. Listen for help overcoming fear, anxiety, and depression. Patty knows about eliminating cancer, MS, dementia, Parkinson's, and a host of illnesses that we face every day. Life can be good. Life is good. All you need are simple tools to start changing your life. Start right now by visiting pattyconklin.com, PATTICONKLIN. No matter where you are in the world, you can work with Patty through Skype, phone, or in person, visiting one of her retreats in Georgia. Visit pattyconklin.com today or call our offices at 404-474-0086. That's pattyconklin.com or call 404-474-0086.
Welcome to the Connecting with Coincidence radio show with Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, bringing together the world's synchronicity experts to help you use meaningful coincidences to develop spiritually, psychologically, and practically. For more information, put Connecting with Coincidence into your web browser to find the book, website, Psychology Today blog, YouTube channel, and Facebook page. And now, here is the host of the Connecting with Coincidence radio show, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD.
Well, welcome back. Welcome back after a hiatus that we were able to get back from. We got the virus around us, and we'll be talking about that today. The relationship between coincidences and what we can do during this pandemic. And so glad you are here, our loyal fans, with us again. And that includes you, Barbara. We are looking into all aspects of coincidences with people from around the world and spread the word about the show. Word of mouth is how we grow. In the next few episodes, my guests and I will be talking about cultivating coincidences in tumultuous times. We fell asleep in one world and woke up in another. Suddenly, Disney is out of magic. Paris is no longer romantic. New York doesn't stand up anymore. The Chinese wall is no longer a fortress, and Mecca is empty. Hugs and kisses suddenly become weapons, and not visiting parents and friends becomes an act of love. Suddenly you realize that power, beauty, and money are worthless and can't get you the oxygen you're fighting for. The world continues its life, and it is beautiful. It only puts humans in cages. I think it's sending us a message. You humans are not necessary. The air, earth, water, and sky are fine without you. When you come back, remember that you are my guests, not my masters. Our guest today is Matthew Zylstra, who is an integral ecologist and facilitator, who is passionate about meaningful nature experiences and rewilding our relationship with Earth. He has a transdisciplinary PhD in conservation ecology and transformative sustainability, and is published widely on the theory and practice of nature connectedness. Matthew has led college studies abroad programs for over 10 years across the Southern Hemisphere. He currently serves as a founding director with the Organization for Noetic Ecology. He's a field lecturer for Wildlands Studies and a research associate with the Sea Change Project. Part of Matthew's ongoing work explores how focused intention and quality attention shapes our nature experiences and ultimately our neurophysiology in support of connection and well-being. Welcome back to the show, Matt.
Thank you very much, Bernie. It's great to be back.
Well, we've talked a bit about nature, synchronicity, and the pandemic. And I wonder what your thoughts about how coincidences might be helpful and useful, as well as maybe problematic during this pandemic period of our lives.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you also for your opening there. I think it was a very poignant opening and one that's, as you were sort of speaking about this awakening into a new world, it brought up quite a lot of emotions in me because we were perhaps asleep and now we've awoken to a very different world where so much of what was normal has been turned on its head. And I just wanted to say before I begin answering your question that I think our conversation needs to really be sensitive to this backdrop because of a lot of what's going on in the world as a backdrop to our conversation. There's a lot of fear, there's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of illness and a lot of loss of all sorts of things. There's loss of life, loss of so much of the familiar ground which we were comfortable in. And so some of the conversation, it might seem academic to a point, but I think more than ever, as you pointed out, synchronicity does have a pragmatic relevance, and it's what it might indicate is as relevant as ever. So with that, I think it's just important to realize that we've come to this incredible choice point for humanity. That's how I feel it at this point in time. And I think more specifically, it's this calling. And what is being called from us as individuals, but also as a collective at this time. Like you say, the world is going to go on. I mean, the other species are going to go on and perhaps actually relishing some silence. But the ball has really been thrown back to us as a species to say, what are we going to bring into the world at this time in response to this? And there's a real sense of not knowing. There's a lot of people out there who have theories and who are very perhaps sure of those theories, but I think we have to be humble in the not knowing of what's happening right now, and also be able to ask that question, which can invite synchronicity. If there's ever been a time for guidance, which synchronicity can give, now's the time.
Yes.
And if one interesting thing from a Southern African perspective, which I just wanted to share, was when in various Southern African traditions, like in Zulu and in Xhosa, when you become a traditional healer or a spiritual diviner, which is known as a sangoma, you go through something which is called a twasa, and that literally translates as a calling. And that calling is preceded by a prolonged illness and by a prolonged sickness, and is accompanied by dreams and visions. And I couldn't help but thinking the other day that humanity, in a way, is having its own twasa right now. It's going through its own prolonged illness, but there's also dreams and visions. And some of what's going out there is sort of this dystopic future, this apocalyptic future, this totalitarian future. But on the other side of these visions, you're hearing and seeing this absolute activation of humanity, which is arising compassion, mutual aid, community, collective action, and this deep sense of care. So in trying to understand synchronicity, I think we really also have to hold this contradiction and hold the polarities of what's happening at this point in time.
Earth is filled with polarities, positive and negative, dark and light. And it's part of the nature of being human on Earth to confront polarities. And you're outlining the two apparent major choices between totalitarianism, apocalypticism, and compassion and caring and love for each other. I'm also a Hegelian in I think of thesis, antithesis, and synthesis. And I'm wondering how maybe these two apparent polarities can be brought together, but that's another question. Let's go back to the way that we are going through a prolonged illness, and I have gone through a prolonged illness recently, and I've come out on the other side of it, I think, transformed and lighter and more spiritually aware. And I certainly have heard of that a number of times from other people, and I'm glad you point out the tradition in the South African people you mentioned. And some people call what we're going through as a near-death experience, which also can be transformative. So how can synchronicity play a role in all of this, Matt?
Well, what you're seeing is all the conditions which are perfectly right for synchronicity. I know you've looked at this before as well. I mean, we're in a point of transition. There's emotional intensity. There's activation deep in the psyche of images. There's a need. And so there's all the fertile ground. But I think one of the major inhibitors here for synchronicity is the sense is that there's fear. And fear can block flow. So this is where synchronicity and how it can help, but also how it can be misleading, can be quite interesting. Because when my sense is when we have these synchronicities which can come out of a fear-based, they can be alluring and they can be seductive, but they mightn't actually speak to the proper guidance that we need at this time. It's almost like they're coming out of that limbic system in our mind, that primal instinctual emotion, and it perhaps doesn't represent sort of a wholeness in our mind. So how can synchronicities be indicative? What I think has to happen is that we need to cultivate the practices that can give us confidence in that the synchronicities that we're encountering, the signs that we might be seeing are not signs that are sort of reflective of a fear, but actually are speaking to a true need at this time. And I mean, once upon a time, I think when life was perhaps normal, we'd be using synchronicities for sort of frivolous things, perhaps getting the car park closest to the shops or things like that. But now I feel that there's a much deeper, sort of, or heavier load perhaps coming with the synchronicities, because it's really asking us deeply, well, what do we need to do? And when there's that sense of urgency and perhaps a sense of fear, you have these synchronicities. Some can be the signs, like these clear signs where we ask for guidance, we wrap it up in intention, we do some sort of ritual, like it's a formalized guidance, and we get a sign which does feel right. But you can also have, when it comes out of fear, omens. And as I think you've discussed before, sometimes omens don't always aren't always necessarily a reliable guide.
We're coming to the end of this segment where it's very good what you're talking about. You're listening to Connecting with the Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, and we're talking with Matt Zylstra.
Are you looking for psychic services that empower as well as provide accurate information? Jenny is a third-generation psychic with extensive esoteric training. A practicing professional intuitive for over 30 years, her accuracy is astounding. While most psychics can read what will happen to you if you don't change directions, Jenny understands the future is subjective. While there is a river of time we all traverse, that river has many waves, eddies, currents, and tributaries from which to choose. With Jenny as your guide, you can explore the many possible outcomes in the river of time and navigate your course to the one of your liking. Take control of your future. Book your life-changing session with Jenny today at www.gen-e.net. That's www.gen-e.net.
Mission Evolution is dedicated to the well-being of the planet and animals, as well as the evolution of humankind. One major factor threatening all three is increasing toxicity. Heavy metals and other environmental toxins are poisoning our bodies, deteriorating our brains, blocking our spiritual connection, and shortening our lives. Yet these poisons are extremely difficult to remove. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, and I recently became aware of a product created from the marriage of nature and nanotechnology called Vitality. It's formulated from zoolite, whose crystalline structure binds toxins, gently carrying them out of the body. The light is only as clear as the window through which it shines. Clear your body, shine your light into the world. Visit vitalityhappens.com for a 20% discount. Enter code PATHHOME.
In the mid-1990s, I was approached by a young woman who believed she'd been abducted by alien creatures. In conversations, I began a journey that took me not into the world of interstellar travel, but back through time into past lives. Under hypnotic regression administered by a professional rather than describing abduction, Jenny, as she is called, begins to tell a tale of horror in 19th century London. Her unbelievable past life seems to connect with Jack the Ripper and other monsters of the past. Throughout the session, Jenny provides a rich detail of her past lives that links some of the most horrific killers in history to one another. Using the resources of a university library in the pre-internet's day, I was able to verify some of Jenny's claims. She has knowledge that wasn't readily available to a suburban housewife. Does this prove the reality of her tales? Conversations attempts to answer that and other provocative questions. Conversations is available at Amazon.com.
Well, welcome back to CC with BB, Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. We're talking with Matt Zylstra, who knows nature in South Africa, where, I don't know, I've had a bunch of people on this show, some from the Sea Change Project, and it's like there's something going on in South Africa with nature that is not happening, as far as I can tell, in other places. But what we're talking about here, Matt, we were talking about near the end of the last segment about how to interpret coincidences and be able to separate out fear-driven, even created by fear coincidences, and ones that are more positive and more helpful to us. Please keep going about that.
Yeah, a lot of my navigating of this has come through personal experience, as it does for everyone. And, you know, I was just differentiating between signs and omens. And what's interesting with an omen is that, I mean, they can be bizarre, wondrous, uncanny, unnerving, dark, portent, all this, but they can also invoke fear and superstition. And particularly if one's sort of prior position is that, you know, their beliefs and experience are a reliable indicator of reality, then you can take these omens as being an absolute beacon for truth. And I think if you look at the old sort of idea of the having the bone pointed at you, sort of in African traditions, I think that's where it comes from, is you can have such a belief in these omens, and you need to be really, really careful and really discerning, particularly when we're sort of floundering or grasping for some sort of indication of what's happening, of what I need to do next. And particularly as far as nature goes, I've had some, I guess what you would call omens in my life, the ones where the owls appeared at a very significant moment at multiple times. And in my research on meaningful nature experiences, particularly synchronicity as a meaningful nature experience, I also encountered stories of people who had snakes, spiders, owls, these particular animals which are known to sort of carry this message of death or portent between the realms. And you see some people buy into that fully and follow it all the way down a passage, and sometimes the event came to pass and sometimes it didn't. And people are left asking, well, what actually happened there? Did I misinterpret? Was that for real? Am I just delusional? And I think it can be to do sort of the state where it comes from. Years ago, I had a couple of striking experiences where I shouldn't have got onto a plane, so it seemed. I'd woken up just before I'd woken up, I'd had a dream of a plane crash, and I tended not to give dreams just before I wake up too much weight, because I thought it wasn't necessarily representative of my deep subconscious. But then a friend called me and said, I've had a feeling I've never had before. Well, actually, I've had this feeling I've only ever had once before, and that was when my grandmother passed away, and I just feel you shouldn't jump on the aeroplane. So now it wasn't just me, it was somebody else feeling this. And then as I entered the plane, somebody was on the phone to their loved one and made a passing joke about the plane perhaps falling out of the sky. And I remember standing there just frozen, like, should I get into this plane or not? And I got on and everything was fine. And I subsequently sort of reinterpreted that experience, or I tried to sort of make sense of what was actually going on there. And I mean, I came to a conclusion, but one thing that it alerted me to the fact is, and also which understanding I got through both my PhD research and also through meditation, is the importance of dispassionate observation, and even of synchronicities, particularly ones that might be quite alluring, is just to sort of look at it and say, is that so? I mean, there's an old sort of Zen story about that, to sort of say, well, that's interesting, is that so? And even if it comes multiple times, trying not to get so wrapped up in it that it starts to derail in terms of what might actually be true. Interestingly, one story that I've gained inspiration from is when Buddha gained enlightenment under a tree. He had all sorts of potential synchronicities or omens trying to derail him, so the story goes. And yet he was able to maintain some sort of neutrality or dispassionate observation to not get caught up into what that might be trying to do to derail his particular path. And so I do think that to cultivate coincidences and synchronicity at this time, we really need to focus on a practice. And a practice like meditation is critical in having that balanced mind.
Getting to that neutrality, and how to decide once you see it. I took a walk yesterday, and in the neighborhood, because I can get out, and we got a little creek that had a bridge, and I was standing on the bridge, and I was seeing a little pool of water that I hadn't seen before that looked like a nice place to go swimming. So I started thinking, oh man, I'd like to go swimming there. So mentally, I projected myself into that pool, and I was enjoying just connecting with the pool of water. And as I'm standing there feeling the pool of water, kind of, and down the creek comes a snake. Snakes come slithering down the creek, just like slither, slither, slither. The snake stops on a rock, puts his head or her head on the top of the rock, and appears to be looking right at me. And I started focusing on the snake, and the snake seemed to be with me. And then the snake got off the rock and got to another rock that was right underneath me. And I looked at the snake. Snake looked at me, and in order to get a better look at the snake, I moved quickly, and at that moment, the snake left, and I didn't see the snake afterwards. That was a snake moment for me. We were connected, the snake and me, and I didn't make anything out of it except to have had a very nice contact with a snake. I didn't see it in any symbolic way other than that here we were together on a beautiful day, connecting with each other.
Yeah, it's an interesting story, and that is one thing I've found so fascinating with synchronicities, and where I'm sort of glad to have also had ecological training, because it's like in every synchronicity there can be an ecological interpretation and there's a psychological. It's sort of two sides of the same coin. And almost like the yin and the yang, actually, because it's never totally separate, but in the sort of Daiji symbol, in every ecological interpretation, there's always a little piece of psychological. And on the other side, in every single psychological interpretation, there's always a little piece of ecological. And they form the same whole and part of the same story. But I don't think one can ever be discounted for the other.
How would you do? How would you do my experience in psychological?
Well, I mean, you can. The ecologist in me would perhaps, like to know sort of more about the conditions of the day. I mean, snakes are obviously out and about. Perhaps being in the water, you might want to know about sort of how dry it was or the weather. And I mean, animals are active and they're busy, and actually, arguably, they're even more out and about now because humans aren't sort of there in their habitat, so they're actually getting more confidence to come out. But however, on the other side, there's an intrigue. Snakes at this time, I mean, snake is a very important symbol. For many traditions, I mean, like it's universal how powerful the snake is. And so then I'd be interested to know, what you were perhaps thinking at the time, what question you might have been holding while you're in the woods for the walk. And I think you can also then look at the symbology of just how the snake appeared. I mean, that eye contact, what was sort of felt within you in terms of your emotions with that eye contact. And then you could just sort of see what sort of awakes within you there to see whether there's a deeper meaning. And whether there is or there isn't, I don't think there has to be sort of a huge post-analysis to it. One thing about synchronicities, as we know, is that you tend to feel it in the moment. Like, well, that was synchronous because I was just thinking that. But, sometimes some reflection does actually prompt something where you actually think, I didn't realize at the time, but perhaps there was more to that than I thought. Particularly, I think if you were to encounter the snake again or a snake again in the next couple of days, for me, the series things is always quite important, because a single event, you can say, well, that's just nature doing its thing. But then you encounter it again, and then you encounter it again, and then you start to say, well, actually, I've been walking in these woods for so many years, and 3 in a week is perhaps slightly beyond what I'd expect from just an ecological encounter. So, I mean, that's the sort of way that I would approach these things.
And I'm glad you went through that, because part of that dispassionate observation involves dispassionately looking at your own interior.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
And if your interior is filled with anxiety, like if I was anxious right then, I might have interpreted that snake as something ominous, that was that I could with me, that might be, but it didn't. It was, my feeling of it was, I had a nice relationship with the snake for a little while, and I'm sorry I disturbed him by moving quickly. And then I walked a little further, and I started quacking at a couple of ducks that were also showed up right when I crossed another bridge. I can quack, quack, quack like Donald Duck. And the duck stopped and kind of hung around for a while, and then we had a little enough, and I continued. So for me, the two experiences were being able to enjoy connection with the beings in nature, and that was about it. And what I think of it now is, we're going to stop in a minute, is like, hey, getting me ready to talk to Matt. We're listening to Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. This talking to Matt Zylstra, ecology guy.
How would your life change if you could develop the business and personal skills that you need in order to make more money? Do you want to learn how to achieve your big life goals faster? Then go to findhiddenmoney.com and get the Goal for It online course. The course teaches you how you can set and achieve your biggest goals while completely overcoming the roadblocks to your goals so that you can realize your dreams and imagine more success. Go to findhiddenmoney.com.
If you are looking for a safe, zero-calorie natural option to the harmful artificial sweeteners on the market today, Just Like Sugar is what you're looking for. Just Like Sugar is a wonderful natural alternative for those health-conscious people who choose a calorie-restricted diet with a great, pure, sweet flavor that tastes just like sugar. Just Like Sugar is a great natural option for people suffering from diabetes and may be useful in restricted diet programs where standard sugars are not allowed and does not cause a laxative effect of some other sweeteners. Just Like Sugar comprises a perfect blend of chicory root fiber, natural calcium, natural vitamin C, and Just Like Sugar's sweetness comes from the natural flavors from the peel of the orange. Just Like Sugar is a natural alternative to harmful artificial sweeteners and will change the way that you believe all natural sweetener products taste. Just Like Sugar is available at your local Whole Foods markets, Wild Oats markets, Henry's, Sun Harvest, and many other fine natural food stores in the U.S., Canada, and worldwide. Audience. If you have seen a UFO, had a close encounter, seen a ghost, Bigfoot, lake monster, or a story that you would like to share or have investigated, contact me, Rob McConnell, by sending me your email to xzone@xzoneradiotv.com, or you can call toll-free 1-800-610-7035, extension 143, and on Skype, X-Zone Radio TV. For more information on the X-Zone Radio TV show with yours truly, Rob McConnell, visit www.xzoneradiotv.com or www.xzonetvchannel.com or simultv.com and xzbn.net. Until next we meet here in the X-Zone from our broadcast center and studios in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, always remember, X-Zone Nation, keep your eyes to the sky and your heart in the light.
Memorable dynamic presentations are a not-so-secret weapon in the business world. Do you have a powerful message that must be shared, but you haven't found a way to deliver that message? Do you want to be known as a top public speaker who gets amazing results? Are you ready to create and deliver your powerful message? Thomas Hides can help you create and deliver your speech to get the results you desire. Visit iconquality.com.
Welcome back to CC with BB. I am your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. We're talking with Matt Zylstra, and we're talking about using synchronicity to understand and help us in this great time of turmoil. And my view of this, of the virus, is that it is a reflection of a subconscious in humankind, where the virus is behaving much like a good part of humanity has been. The virus is interested only in its own survival and propagation. Human beings have only been interested lately in its survival and propagation. We are too many on this world. We, like the virus, are destroying our host. The virus goes to many people who get partially sick, but destroys many who get very sick. And we're doing that to our planet. We are destroying parts of our habitat. The virus is subconscious reflection of humanity's greed and unquestioning drive to conquer the earth.
Yeah, I mean, that's really well put, Bernie. There is a lot of sort of profound mirroring, I would say, going on here, or the shadow, if you will, is really being held up to humanity at this point in time. And a lot of ironies, a lot of paradoxes, a lot of dark ironies in a way. Things that we were so sure of are all sort of becoming to greet us. And there's been some fantastic articles out there about how this is potentially Earth's way of holding up a real mirror to humanity. And you could say that she tried with increasing storm events and wildfires and all sorts of other things, but it wasn't quite enough for us to actually stop and take notice. And now, when that reflection is right in front of our eyes, and it's sort of not discriminating, also, well, it is now. I mean, we see it is discriminating between classes, but the sense is that sort of everybody could be vulnerable to this. You just have a sense of how far-reaching it is. And then one of the other interesting things is the question is whether even viruses are alive, are a form of life. I mean, per definition, they don't actually kind of equate to life, given their sort of biological genetic makeup, and that's also quite quirky as well. So, really deeply asking, holding the mirror up and asking humanity, how will we respond? What is our calling here? And one of the things about synchronicities is that they alert us to connection. One of the defining things that we've found in research on this is that in those moments people have synchronicity, they feel connected. And for so long we've been saying about how separated humanity is, particularly from Earth and nature, but also socially as well. And at this time, when we have synchronicities, they remind us of that, and they remind us of a connection that's deeper than just the physical, that seems to transcend space and time. They can lead us back into connection, and they can help us deepen connection. And if one thing that I think is being asked of here, in spite of or despite of the social distancing or the physical disconnection, is actually really finding our way back into connection with ourselves, who we are, and we're getting that time for introspection. Many people are with each other, and we're seeing people connect in other kinds of ways that they never have before, and with nature and Earth. And unfortunately, in lockdown, that's difficult for some. But still, even in one's own little surrounds, I've just been finding incredible connection developing just from sitting in a little grass patch in the back of our apartments. I've really coming to sort of sitting in place. So
it's all around us, and it just requires taking a more close look at what is around us to see some of these connections. And so you're leading us into how do we use synchronicity, coincidences, even in a lockdown, to be able to somehow make things better, not only for us, but for other people.
I know at times, and I feel it now, and I've seen it with friends, we yearn for synchronicities, particularly when it's completely tumultuous, as you say. We want synchronicities to provide us the sign, to give us the guidance as to what to do next.
When you talk about that, one of the things that you mentioned in your bio is focused intention and quality attention shapes our nature experiences, and with that also synchronicity. Could you talk about what you mean by that, by those phrases?
And this is critical in terms of the possibility of cultivating synchronicity, because at least with my experiences in nature, synchronicities are more likely to happen when we are holding an intention. And that intention needs to be perhaps written, but at least stated quite strongly in one's mind and held before going into a certain context where we're hoping to find a sign that can be instructive of where to go. So that's where the intention part comes in, or the intentionality. And the attention is...
Could you give us an example of an intention that you have held quite strongly before going into nature, which I'm going to include going into your backyard at your apartment building as nature? So and what someone can do listening to us into sharpening and about holding an intention quite strongly, then we can go back to the quality of that intention.
Sure. Well, a place up until lockdown, the place that I've been gaining the most nourishment out of is an estuary not far from where I live, which I can get to from walking distance. And I've been experimenting over the last few years about how I enter into that space makes a difference in terms of the encounters I have. And it has been quite remarkable that the times when I stop before I enter, maybe just take a moment to breathe, to become aware, to activate my senses, to give gratitude, because this little estuary is quite modest, but it's gifted me so much over the years in terms of just restoring a sense of well-being, just going for a swim. So there's gratitude that comes in. And then I just like to ground myself and look out over the estuary and invite whatever might come up at this point in time for me. And in that gratitude, I think there's also just I like to put these sort of intentions in terms of the thinking, the feeling, and the emotions. So just thinking how it feels to have a good swim, have a good experience, or have a good outcome. The sensory component of that, what am I actually feeling for that desired intention to manifest? And then the emotions of how it feels when I come out of that particular situation. And so that's the sort of thing that I'd cultivate. I might do breathing exercise, I might do stretches, not always, but I've just found that when I've entered the water with that sort of little reset, as if there's some sort of coherence coming in between myself and the rest of life, that the encounters that I'm gifted on those particular swims or snorkels seem to be much more richer or be much more profound than when I've just quickly run in because I've only got half an hour and I want to have a quick swim. And I just, and my whole state doesn't seem to be in sort of resonance with the nature around me. So that's a big part of the intentionality. Yeah.
And I'm going to put it in terms of maybe my simpler terms of lining your psyche and energy with the surrounding you're about to enter.
Yeah. I mean, it's hard to know exactly what's happening, but that's what it feels like.
And that's I kind of have a cruder way of thinking about it, which is just what it was. I went into the forest where I usually go a couple of weeks ago, and my intention was to get the trees that I know best to help me with a bit of a back problem that I had. And I stood there, and it was like a little bit of rehab. They said, we're not going to fix it right now, but here's what you can do. And they gave me a little exercise and I tried a little something else. And then I did a little rehab at home and laid off of it and heat and cold and stuff. And, it's almost better now. And it was a nice experience. This happened to me before in different ways, that you can be healed. But I think it's what you're describing, the thinking, feeling, emotion, sensory experience. You got to line up with what's there to allow that, whatever it is, to happen.
Exactly. And you also need to be aware, like you said, of the ground that it's coming from. Is there this nervous anxiety, this fear that's the wellspring? And if it is, take care in terms of what comes up in as a mirror, because it could well be a reflection of that.
That's so important what you're saying there, because that's where we started, the omen versus sign. And how fear can get in the way. Fear stops one's ability to be able to see coincidences, but it also leads to things like theories about the way things work. Just so you need to have a theory that it could be called a made-up theory because you think some evil process is out there doing something to you. You've got to externalize your own internal fear. But we're going to in the next segment, we come to the end of this one. Want to be able to talk about signs, which you kind of are already, but just what we mean by a sign that is something we can read. The signs are to me guesses. I mean. Offers of possibilities, but not necessarily solid truths. You're listening to Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. We are talking with Matt Zylstra.
watching the X Zone TV channel last night when I was abducted by aliens, and they kept repeating to me over and over again, simultv.com, simultv.com.
What's simultv.com?
That's what I asked them. They had it written on the side of their UFO.
How do you spell that?
UFO.
No, I mean simultv.com.
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 Right. simultv.com.
Interesting that you were abducted by aliens in a simultv.com UFO last night.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah. Now that you mention it, I remember now last night I was awakened from a deep sleep. My great-grandmother was standing there. She said she'd come from the hereafter to tell me about simultv.com. She even spelled it out for me.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
simultv.com.
simultv.com, sonny boy.
Wow.
Yeah.
Guys, you'll never guess what my psychic guru just told me.
simultv.com.
Exactly. Are you guys psychic too?
Of course.
We all know about simultv.com. simultv.com.
In the mid-1990s, I was approached by a young woman who believed she'd been abducted by alien creatures. In conversations, I began a journey that took me not into the world of interstellar travel, but back through time into past lives. Under hypnotic regression administered by a professional rather than describing abduction, Jenny, as she is called, begins to tell a tale of horror in 19th century London. Her unbelievable past life seems to connect with Jack the Ripper and other monsters of the past. Throughout the session, Jenny provides a rich detail of her past lives that links some of the most horrific killers in history to one another. Using the resources of a university library in the pre-internet's day, I was able to verify some of Jenny's claims. She has knowledge that wasn't readily available to a suburban housewife. Does this prove the reality of her tales? Conversations attempts to answer that and other provocative questions. Conversations is available at Amazon.com.
Mission Evolution is dedicated to the well-being of the planet and animals, as well as the evolution of humankind. One major factor threatening all three is increasing toxicity. Heavy metals and other environmental toxins are poisoning our bodies, deteriorating our brains, blocking our spiritual connection, and shortening our lives. Yet these poisons are extremely difficult to remove. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, and I recently became aware of a product created from the marriage of nature and nanotechnology called Vitality. It's formulated from zoolite, whose crystalline structure binds toxins, gently carrying them out of the body. The light is only as clear as the window through which it shines. Clear your body, shine your light into the world. Visit vitalityhappens.com for a 20% discount. Enter code PATHHOME.
Welcome back to CC with BB. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD. We've been talking about how a negative emotion, particularly anxiety and fear, can lead a person to misinterpret omens as something much more negative than the omen might have in it, but it's a reflection of our own internal fears. Well, what about signs, Matt? I mean, what are tell us about how to, in this tumultuous time, how we can better use signs, find them, experience them, and use them to help us, and talk about the quality of attention that will help us with coincidence understanding.
Well, the two are interlinked, as you suggest, and the key, I believe, in finding signs at this time is to really pay attention, invest attention, and to listen, to be able to quiet the mind and deeply listen to what's around us. Some people say that there's signs everywhere, and there's always signs around. It's just whether we are actually aware enough to perceive them. It was funny you should mention about seeing the snake as sort of thinking about having a chat with me, because just yesterday I encountered a praying mantis, which is actually a very profound sort of creature for me, or at least it was during my PhD research. I hadn't seen one for a long, long time, and I encountered it, but it could have easily been missed. And I didn't think too much of it. It was there doing its thing, but I also had that little sort of nod of like, yeah, well, I'm actually going to be chatting to Bernie soon. Isn't that interesting?
And you told me about your praying mantises the last time we talked.
Yeah, exactly. So I thought that was quirky, but not the sort of ground shifting thing that perhaps we need at this time. But one thing about synchronicities is they also help us feel that we're not alone. And so when we have these signs, you at least have a feeling, and particularly when they come from non-human nature, that there's just something out there giving a nod. And in these times of isolation, seeing the signs which point to the fact that there's something other, bigger than ourselves, can also provide that reassurance that we're not alone in this journey, no matter how difficult it's going to feel.
That's so important, Matt. And let's turn that around. Let's say that there is a need to feel not alone, to feel connected with something more than just me, or even some of the people around us. How do you know we're not distorting that one too, the way fear can do?
Again, I think it has to be a real close sort of inspection as to where is that coming from. And we often say that synchronicities respond to a need, and I'm often curious as to whose need. I had a really interesting conversation earlier this week with a friend who told me an experience of how she had did this Kundalini process of manifesting intention, and she was hoping for a particular partner to manifest, and he did in every way that she'd been intending, and it seemed to be a direct response to the need. It seemed to be an incredible sort of synchronicity. And she was like, wow, this sort of ritualized intention works. Here I have it. And only for a few months later for that relationship to sort of peter out. And we were wondering, was the intention sort of wrapped in an egoic sort of need, a need that the ego felt they needed, a particular partner with particular looks and background and what have you. But didn't really speak to a soul need or a need of self with a capital S. And I think that's also one of the things to be asked as to how do we know that it's not just tricking us. And so she sort of reflected that perhaps the need was coming more out of the ego or the persona, but the lesson that she got through the breakup was actually part of what her self or her soul needed to go through and experience at this time. But there are no concrete answers. And I think that's just one of the mysteries that we're always living into. And asking with these signs, how do I know it to be true? And they sometimes have a particular flavor where we know. I mean, that's that noetic side of things. We just sort of know. But then not to become attached to that, to say, okay, that provides a stepping stone to the next sort of decision I need to make, or the next understanding of how I can best work on myself or best act in the world at this particular time. But now let's ask the question again and hold that question. And that's where the attention's coming in, being able to hold the question and sort of say, where am I placing my attention now? Why? How's that helping me? How's that helping me help others? And that's where I think these signs can be stepping stones toward the path of navigating what's going on in this time.
Oh, that's good. That's good. It's one of the key points you made was that you may think you got what you wanted, but the reason you needed it may not be what you think it was. So stay with the coincidence and see what happens, as this woman learned from the breakup that that may have been the primal lesson for her on the deeper soul level than the ego level. So she was so the impact on her was what about her ego?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think she's still unpacking it, and I wouldn't want to give sort of too many details for her own personal story, but I mean, she was at least forced to reflect on what was she yearning for so much in a relationship, and was that really what she needed at this point in time at a deeper level? So I think we don't always know what the universe wants for us, even though we think we do. And I think part of this journey is also about surrendering into the not knowing. I recently did a little what you call vision quest, where you go out into the mountains for a couple of days and you fast. And both times it's happened, I've gone in with what I thought with my intention, but it seems like that nature had something else for me. And this last one, I was just sick. I had really bad diarrhea, dysentery, and it was a huge cleanse. And my question was sort of, what do I need to be called from in this time? And we went in there, and there was a bit of COVID stuff going on in our country, not a lot, and I came out to a national disaster. So It was incredible what had transpired in those days of being off grid.
Wow.
How my own experience of sort of going through illness up there was quite reflective of what was going on in the world, or at least sort of in the country. And it also illuminated the fact that I needed to take care of myself, where I was looking at, well, what can I do in the world right now? And there were indications of that, but I realized first and foremost, I'd have to put my own health as a priority. So, yeah, my ego was looking for indications, but actually at a deeper level, I felt that self was saying, actually, now you need to take care of yourself a bit more before you go too tether in the world as it's changing.
Well, boy, did I learn that one. If your body ain't working, you can't do too much. And so when I work on my book or other things, I have to listen to what my body is saying. And it's been a difficult lesson, but I think I'm learning it pretty well, of having to have these intentions. I gotta do this. I want to finish this. I gotta do it now. And I'm writing the last chapter of my new book, which I'm calling Knowing Coincidences. And it's about the future. And you're helping me think about it, because the two sections in that last chapter are the future of coincidence studies and the future of the world as seen through coincidences. And what you're describing is helpful right there.
Thanks. The one thing I just want to stress, and the realization that I came out of my PhD research on meaningful nature experiences, of which a subset was synchronicity, was, we cannot manufacture synchronicities on demand, and they are they're alluring, they're wonderful, we want them in our life, but we can't cry and get upset when they're not appearing. They can be indicators of flow. So when we don't have them, we sort of have a sense of, well, are we not in flow? What's going on? And so we yearn after those things. So I was very focused on, well, how do we cultivate meaningful nature experiences? How can we create more of them? And what led me through, what the golden thread was that I came to rediscover again for the first time was connection. And in the absence of synchronicities, just focus on connection. So while synchronicities open up connection in our life and they make us feel that, it's also connection which concedes synchronicity. And I saw that both quantitatively and qualitatively in my research analysis. And so I would just urge everybody at this time to focus on a practice that brings connection in one's life. And I would always add that it's important to make sure that's also non-human nature. We can't just get it in ourselves, with ourselves, in that sort of incestuous relationship humans have. We do need non-human nature, but we can, through meditation, through dance, through all those things, find connection. And the synchronicities will follow eventually. They will come, but don't be anxious for that. And when they come, we just have to make sure we're attentive and we're alert and we listen, and then we observe and say, there we go. Isn't that's lovely, but not be attached to the next synchronicity. That was a great indicator. I appreciate it. I'm grateful. Now let's be alert and let's keep holding the question to see if another one comes up.
Very good.
And I think, that's where we need to go.
That's very good. We can't manufacture synchronicities on demand. They cannot be demanded. Some people think maybe they're not in the flow when they don't appear, but we can just rediscover connection, because coincidences can follow from connections, and that means connections with non-human nature, which I strongly go along with, and then follow the connections, attentively observe and analyze. And I like the small, but it's clear that you saw a praying mantis, and they're very important to you. A little before our interview today, and I saw a snake, which certainly was what you started with talking about as an omen. So thank you very much, Matt, for being on the show. You've been listening with Connecting with Coincidence. I'm your host, Dr. Bernie Beitman, MD, on the X Zone Broadcast Network. Matt Zylstra has been our guest.